Okay, it is 7 o'clock, and I know how busy everybody is. I want to go ahead and get started. As folks come in, we'll just let them in, and we'll keep on going. I'd like to welcome everybody, welcome families, and looks like we have staff here, and want to welcome you to this is the elementary question and answer session. Tomorrow night, we'll be doing secondary schools, so tonight is pre-K through 5th grade. Certainly, if you're here for high school, you can stay, but that will be, high school and middle school will be tomorrow. And so what we're trying to do tonight is to answer several of your questions that were submitted in the last 3 or 4 days since we put the plan out last Friday. And so I want to thank you. Number one, we got a great response to that. We got a lot of questions. And so our goal is to get through these questions. And we want to, before I begin though, I just want to again thank this community for their patience and their support. And I believe because of that, we're going to be able to work through these things, because as you know, these are very difficult times, and coming back to school is not going to be an easy task. So our objective tonight is to answer as many questions as possible, provide you with information that will allow you to make decisions in the coming year. Now, understand that many of the questions that were asked were very specific in nature and specific to you or your family personally. And so this probably isn't the forum for me to try to answer those questions. And so I will answer, and what we've done is we've taken the broader questions that showed up over and over, and we put them together to answer for you. But if you have specific questions, we still want to answer those. But I think they'll be best handled at your school, and they'll be best handled by your administrative team at your school. So we have those questions, and we're going to forward those questions to the schools, because when you filled out the questions, you put down what school your child attended. And so we're going to ask that you reach out to them in the coming week. They're prepared to begin communicating with you. They're all on the call tonight, so all the principals and assistant principals in our elementary schools are watching here tonight, and so they're ready to help you get your individual, real personal, specific questions answered. Now, the one thing I want to say again is I'm going to continue to come on here and provide you with broad, division-wide, division-level information to help you move forward. But I think it's really important to know that each of our schools, while we're going to give them guidance in how to handle this, there are going to be some differences from school to school, because each school is different. They have different space, they have different staff. And so just understand that this is a really good time, if you haven't done this before, is to start communicating with your school. Communicate with your principal, the assistant principal, and your teacher, because the only way I really think we're going to be successful in getting through this is if we have really good communication back and forth between one another. And so I will do more general communication with you, and we're going to leave the more specific to your schools. So, like I said, what I want to do is answer kind of the questions that repeated themselves on our form. And so the first question is kind of an overview question. How did we land on the plan that was submitted? So as you've been aware, in the last month or two, we have sought our community's input. We've sent out surveys. We've held town halls in this forum to get some input from our community and our staff to see what the concerns were, what the things that we really needed to work on. And so we took all of that information, and then we took best practices, and then we took the guidelines given to us by the state, and we put a team of 70 community members, from school members to business people to parents to other community members, and they began working on this plan. I submitted the plan to the school board on Thursday night, and I released it to the public Friday morning. And the goal is after tonight, I will do this again tomorrow night with our secondary parents and families and staff. And then on Monday, we will have a board retreat with our school board. And the hope is that we will adopt this plan on Monday. But in that feedback that we got and the members of the task force putting this document together, we really understood that there were lots of differences in what people desired. And so I'm going to keep reiterating this, is that we have some parents out there and some families out there that really want their students back in school right away. And then on the other end of the spectrum, we have a lot of families that don't want their students to come back until, say, a vaccine has been developed. And so there's a lot of space in between those beliefs. And so one of the things we did when we built this plan is we built it around three things we thought that everybody could agree on in this community. And so I will keep talking about these three commonalities, because I think when we developed the plan, that's where this plan came from, or these ideas and these beliefs that we all share. And number one is that safety is top priority. The physical safety, the emotional safety of both our students and our teachers. We have 4,000 students and we have 700 adults, and those students go home to families. And so we have an entire community that we want to try to protect here. And so we need to do the right things when we return to school. The second idea is that I believe, and I believe most of you believe, that school is the best place for our students to learn and to be. And I understand that not everybody's going to feel comfortable with that right away. And so we're going to make arrangements to give folks that want to stay at home and still get their learning done. We'll make those arrangements. But if we can get our students back into school as safely as possible, we want to do that. We think that's the best way for our students to learn. We know that that helps in their emotional well-being, and so we want to get them back in as quickly and safely as possible. And then third commonality is that we, as a public school, have guidelines that we need to follow. Our guidelines are set by the Virginia Department of Education. It's set by the governor and the CDC. And so we have lots of guidelines and restrictions that we have to work within to try to bring students back to school. And as a school system, we're going to do that. And so those are the three things that I think you can expect from us and how we've made decisions. All right, the first set of questions after just kind of an overview, which I think is most people are most interested in, is questions about the schedule. So before I answer specific schedule questions, I want to quickly review what those schedules are. So as you remember, we have divided each school, or we're dividing each school in half. So say Elon Elementary has 400 students, 200 will be placed in Group A and 200 will be placed in Group B, and we'll do that for every school. Group A will come to school at 8 a.m. and they will leave at 2 p.m. and they will be at school Monday through Thursday. If you've seen the plan and you've looked at the little chart, those students in Group A will start in our hybrid learning session and they will finish the day with their homeroom teacher. Group B, which is the second half of the school, will start at 9 a.m. and they will end at 3 p.m. And that will also be Monday through Thursday. So as you understand, Friday will have no students. Staff will get planning time, professional development. We'll use that day to do deep cleaning in our buildings. And those students in Group B will start in their homeroom class and they'll finish in the hybrid learning section. And just so you understand why there's a stagger and why there's half of the building at a time, it's because, number one, with the restrictions that we have with our transportation, we can only get half of our students there at a time. So the Group A will be brought in, the buses will go back out, get Group B and bring them in at 9. But that stagger also allows us to keep some social distancing as well. So that's a quick review of the schedule. And so here's some specific questions about the schedule. And so I think a lot of parents want to know, how are the groups determined? Who gets to be in Group A? Who gets to be in Group B. So there are many factors that go into that. So we've been collecting information over the last several weeks about whether you plan to ride the bus or you plan to be a car rider. And so if you've not done that information for us, I know the survey is closed, but call your school and let them know whether you intend to ride the bus or ride in a car, because we're going to use that information to help make those A-B decisions. So schools will make specific decisions based on how many students are riding in a particular bus that live in a particular neighborhood, what grade levels they're in, and then we're going to make sure that we identify family groupings, so siblings. So we're making sure that all of our siblings are in the same group. The last thing we want to do is split up families in those A and B groups. So there are a lot of things that go into equally distributing our students in the A and the B group, but we have to hear from you what you intend to do, because that really is the basis for how we schedule these out, because our buses are so critical in how this plan is going to work, because those that want to ride the bus, we got to figure out how to get them on the bus in the most effective and efficient way possible. And so we got to hear from you, and that's how we're going to work on A group and B group. Now, when are we going to decide that? So as we're working through this, the plan is to have that information out to families in the next 2 weeks. I understand that you want to get that as soon as possible so you can make some other decisions. But as you understand, this is a very intricate plan and a lot of moving pieces, and so we got work still to do on dividing those classes up. Another question about schedule is, what will a normal in-person day look like? And another part of that question is what will the hybrid learning piece to that look like? So let's just kind of go through the day for, say, the B group. So the B group will show up at 9 o'clock. They'll start with their homeroom teacher. So their homeroom teacher is where the most direct instruction will take place. And that direct instruction will be focused on math and English. All right. So those students will be in that class with that teacher or a group of teachers that work through there for 2.5 hours. Then lunch will happen for those students, and then they will switch with the A group and they will go to hybrid learning. Hybrid learning is going to be a larger area. So in some of our gyms and our cafeterias and libraries, so in our larger spaces and any other spaces we can find, is where our hybrid learning is going to take place. And it's a really flexible time period. So I want to say, because of the different staff at our building, the different spaces, this flexible time period will look different from school to school. Now, there'll be some very common things. And so here's what are the things that will be happening in those hybrid learning. So we're going to do social emotional learning in those classes. And so we're going to kind of work on some of these things that our students need to have to start to feel like they're part of this community again. They're part of the school. They have a sense of belonging, how they can deal with their anxieties and their stressors. And so those things are going to happen in that hybrid learning time. We're also going to take that time to provide our students with technical assistance. So all of our students, K through 5, will have a Chromebook. And we understand that not every student understands how to use those Chromebooks yet. And then on top of that, how to use the Virtual Virginia platform where our different courses will live. And so we're going to spend time in those first several weeks to help our students with technology, with Virtual Virginia, and so they can be successful in those areas. Our science and social studies classes will be housed on the Virtual Virginia, and that's where they'll do that in that hybrid learning space. They'll also have their resource teachers come through there, so staff like PE teachers, music teachers, art teachers, librarians, And even our DARE program will run through these hybrid learning sessions. So they're a little longer. They're going to be 3 hours, but there's going to be a lot of different things happening during those times. And so that's kind of how a normal day will look for our students Monday through Thursday. Another question that was asked was, will our work be graded? And so I want to make it really clear that things this fall are going to be very different from how we left off in the spring. So in the spring, the governor closed schools. He is telling us that school will be open. Now, whether or not school's going to be open and you're going to be in person, or things kind of deteriorate in terms of our health data and we're all back on remote learning, but one way or another, school's going to be open. And as such, work will be graded. And so I want to make sure you understand that all the work that our students do just in every normal circumstance, we're going to be grading work. Now, we understand that there are going to be differences in the type of work that's done. And so we always want to be fair, and we want our grades to reflect what students are understanding and how they're growing. And so a grading committee has been developed to determine these specifics, and there will be more on that soon. But I think the key is that you understand that this year is going to be a open school year, and grades will show up for all of our students. Okay, so for those folks that are looking for just a remote learning option only, let's talk a little bit about that, because there were a lot of questions that were surrounding that. And so basically the first question was, how do we even register for that? And so when you go to register your students, and that document's going to be put out, I believe, early next week to go in and start registering your student, there will be an option to choose remote learning only on there. And so when you go in there, please check that, because we need to know when you make that decision that we want to be remote or in person. You got to let us know as quickly as possible, because so many decisions are made based on what you as a parent and a family decide as to what's best for you. So will my student receive a device for remote learning? Yes, actually all of our students, whether they're remote or in person, will receive a device. Now, kindergarten students, we know that you don't have your devices yet, and many of our elementary school students didn't pick them up in the spring. So in the first 2 weeks of school, we're going to start to distribute those devices and then show our students how to use them. Want to go back a little bit to Virtual Virginia being the remote option that we'll be using. And so our students, and we'll have some training modules to help parents understand what Virtual Virginia is about. And so we want to make sure that everybody understands how to use the product. Now, we also understand at this point that people's connectivity in Amherst County is different for each student. And so we have some students that have great internet service, they have devices, and they'll be able to kind of access our remote learning fairly easy. But that doesn't, if you don't have high-speed, reliable internet, that will not keep you from using the remote learning option. So we use the word remote, not virtual, because there's still the option of getting work sent home in packets. And there's also the option of downloading our information to flash drives that can be put on your hotspot. And there's also internet access all over the school division. So we have internet access in our parking lots. We have 6 buses that will be out off hours, because obviously our buses will be used during the day, that will have hotspots on them. We just got off a meeting today with Lit Communities. They're a group of people that are helping us create a network for students only that will come from each school. And so we're doing all we can do to get the internet in Amherst County effective for, number one, our students, because that's our first goal. And so remote learning can happen even if you don't have internet, great internet. And so we'll work with you through those options. Here's a big question that the folks that were thinking about remote learning only ask. So what if we choose remote learning and then we find that it's not exactly what we wanted, it's not the right fit, you feel more comfortable in going back to in-person? So we're going to give a grace period to those students to kind of be in the virtual Virginia, the remote learning, for a period of time before they have to choose whether or not they're going to stay in it. So we'll provide a grace period and they say, oh, it's not for me and we want to come back into school. So understand that if you take that option, if I choose remote learning only, but I think that it's not going to work out for me and I want to come back into the school, understand that the scheduling of your child will take some time. So even if you say, I don't like it, I want to come back into school, and you're still within that time frame that we've given, it's not going to happen right away, because we got to schedule buses. We got to make sure that the classroom that your child goes into, they will fit, because there's still social distancing requirements. And so all we ask is we're going to help you. We're going to work with you on the transition between remote learning and in person, but we have to ask you to be patient with that. It just can't happen because you want it to happen. We got to work through that, and we need to work together on that. And then the last question about remote learning is, how are we going to monitor attendance? Because we're still required to, and all the students that go to our schools are still required to come to school, and attendance is going to be monitored. So if you're on Virtual Virginia, we can monitor attendance through the time that you've been logged on to Virtual Virginia. We can also determine attendance by completion of products. So when you're asked to do work that you completed and it's turned in, that's how we can determine attendance. And also, if you're a remote only student, we're going to set up times throughout the week that you'll check in with your teachers, and those will be mandatory meetings, and we'll either do those virtually or by phone based on what you have available to you. But we know from the spring that being at home and doing work by yourself is not easy. And so we want to make sure that our staff is available to help with that. So we're going to require that all your students that take that option will be a part of a check-in meeting. And so that's how we're going to be working with attendance. And we're also getting some feedback from the state. The DOE is going to give us some more guidance, but right now that probably will help you in terms of understanding how attendance will happen while you're at home. Okay, the other set of questions centered around transportation. And the first question, obviously, is can siblings sit next to each other on the bus? Yes, they will be able to sit together. That will actually be helpful to us because it'll allow us to get more students on the bus. And so really with family units, we want them in the same group and on the same bus and hopefully on the same seat. So we want to make sure that you recognize that that's possible. The other question was, is face covering required for the buses? And so when we presented the plan, is that we're still abiding by 6-foot social distancing. But on a bus, 6-foot social distancing looks like a student on every other seat. And if we put a student on every other seat, that means we can only get 13 students on each bus. And none of the schedule will work if we can only put 13 students on the seat. So they gave us some new guidance that said we can reduce that to 3 feet as long as face coverings are worn. And so that's our plan. We are going to let a student sit on each seat. And in order to do that, you're going to have a face covering on. There have been questions, but what about students with severe disabilities? And so our special education buses, we will accommodate those students and we will spread them out to the 6-foot distance. So if they have some significant disabilities and can't wear face coverings, we're going to separate them 6 feet. So we'll stay within our guidelines there. This question about transportation, a lot like the online learning, is what if circumstances change and my child needs to start riding the bus during the year? We understand that life circumstances changes, and we certainly know that in the fall things will change. Once again, we will accommodate you. We will do everything we can to accommodate you to find places on buses, but understand that it will be a lag time again, because we're going to have to reroute buses. We're going to have to reschedule some of our buses. And so there will be some time lag between when you say, I need this, I need my child to ride a bus. So please, if I go back to the very beginning, please stay in communication with us. That's the real key here, is so get in touch with us so we can make the changes for you in a timeliest fashion as we can. We can't promise you that you tell me one day that you want to be on the bus and the next day you're going to be on it. There's just no way we can turn that around for you in that short a time. So be patient with us. I want to talk a little bit about mitigation strategy. So there were lots of different questions about mitigation strategy, but we kind of combined them into discuss in more detail mitigation strategies. So what are those mitigation strategies? Why do we even use mitigation strategies? So the understanding is that the science is getting much better about what controls the virus, what reduces the risk. And so I've said this before and I'll say it again. If you choose to come back to school, I cannot guarantee there will be no risk. That is not possible. So what we're doing is using mitigation strategies that will decrease those risks. And so for every mitigation strategy that we use, we will make it more unlikely that we will pass the virus around. And so yesterday, if you did not see it, I was on the Amherst Chamber of Commerce Facebook page. I did a chamber chat with them. And the other guest was Randy Pirtle, who's the executive director at the Blue Ridge Medical facility. And we discussed what our mitigation strategies were. And then he gave the science and the medical advice behind it. So I think that's a good thing to go back and watch. If you have Facebook, to go check that out, because he gives a lot of good guidance to parents from a medical professional's perspective. So, but let's talk a little bit about our mitigation strategies. We expect our students to maintain the 6-foot social distance. That's what this whole plan is about, is providing that space between all of our students. And that way, if we can keep that 6-foot social distance, students aren't required to wear a face mask. But the science is becoming more clear that wearing the face mask not only protects people around you, but it protects yourself. And so there's been some studies out there that are saying just wearing a face covering will also protect you, because the early science was saying wearing a face mask will protect people around you if you have COVID-19. But I think right now it's saying that it can work both ways. So we're going to really encourage face masks, but we understand that if we can keep social distancing, we're not going to require it. So they're going to be required on the bus, but not in the school building. Now, when our staff breaks down 6-foot social distancing, we're going to ask them to put a mask on, because there will be times when our staff need to be closer to our students. We encourage you to bring your own face mask. If you're a parent, to buy a face mask, to maybe get your child used to putting it on, taking it off, putting it on, so they can start to get a feel for that, because we want them to have a face mask if they get into a situation in the school where we cannot keep social distancing. And so those are what we're going to talk about with our face mask and social distancing. We also want to talk about symptoms and how we monitor symptoms. And so the CDC recommends that symptom monitoring occur. And so we're going to do this by asking our staff and our students and parents to assess themselves at home for symptoms. So we're going to ask you to, if your child's old enough to check their own symptoms, and that's probably for tomorrow night. But the elementary students, we want a parent to check them before they leave to go to school every day, to say, do they have a fever of plus 100.4? Is there a new cough that can't be explained by pre-existing conditions? Is there shortness of breath that can't be explained? Do you have an unexplained sore throat? So There will be different things that will provide some sort of document for you to check off on, so then you can show evidence that your child is good to go and they can come to school. And so we haven't figured out exactly how that document is going to, or you're going to show that evidence, but we're going to figure something out that is going to be, it's not going to be difficult to do. We just have to get in the habit of doing it. And certainly if your child shows these symptoms, we're going to ask that you stay at home, because if they get to school and we're finding those same issues there, that your child is showing symptoms, we're going to immediately ask that you come pick up your child. And the other mitigation strategies are around hygiene and sanitation. So hygiene, making sure you wash your hands all the time, that we are going to have hand washing stations and different products in the building where you can wash your hands. Hand sanitizer will be made available. And then we will wipe down surfaces that are most often used and touched. So there will be a lot of sanitation products being used during the day. I want you to realize that we will, in the first week of school, and I talked about it in those hybrid places, those hybrid learning opportunities, that we'll spend the first week or so reviewing these health expectations, teaching our students, explicitly teaching our students how to wash their hands, how to remain socially distant, how to understand what your symptoms are, and how to wear face covering. So those things will be covered at school when they arrive, but I'm going to talk about at the end a little bit of what you can do at home and some of the resources that we're going to make available so you can help prepare your child for these things when they get to school. All right, this is a big one, response to outbreak. So I kind of broke this down in two sections, two different types of questions that we receive. So what is the school's response if there is a case or an outbreak? And so the Department of Health, the Virginia Department of Health, they will take the lead during these times, because they're going to be the first people to know if a positive test is confirmed. So if we have a student that goes out or a teacher that goes out and is tested, they're not going to tell us there's a positive test until that result comes back. So there will be a lag between when those people leave to go get a test and when they get it back. Now, I'll tell you, I have requested that the Department of Health prioritize school personnel and students, because we want parents to know that if a student goes out to get tested, that there's not a large gap between when we find that out. And so once there's a confirmed case is made by the Virginia Department of Health, they will immediately begin their investigation. They will contact me, I will contact the school, and the contact tracing process will begin. And so if the original question is what happens if a case occurs, so the Department of Health will not say this is what happens if, because they believe that every situation is different. So they don't think they can answer that question until they come into our building and start investigating. So what they will be investigating is, what was the exposure in a classroom, or was there exposure on the bus? Well, if you remember, if you're on the bus and you're wearing the mask, that exposure is reduced significantly. So there might not be the need to quarantine that bus, but there might be. And so there might be a need to quarantine and close a certain classroom or a certain grade level or even an entire school. But those decisions will be made on a case-by-case basis, and the Virginia Department of Health will take the lead. They will come into our buildings and they will do those investigations. And so the other type of question around cases and outbreak is, how will I be notified? As a parent, how am I going to be notified? So the notification for teachers and staff and parents of a laboratory confirmed case, so not innuendo or speculation or rumor, it's when there's a laboratory confirmed case of COVID-19, there will be an associated notification from the school. So notification will need to be done, though. So you'll get a letter. There'll be different letters based on the different results of their investigation. But every parent or a school will get a letter when there's a confirmed case. Every teacher will get a letter. These notifications have to happen because we have to protect the rights of our students and our staff of privacy. And so they'll be done in a way that protects the confidentiality of the ill individual, and it will then, the letter will clearly explain what the school response is to that case and what the recommendations are for staff, students, and parents. I think it's important to know that should your child be in an area where there was exposure, the health department and the school will contact you personally. There won't be a form letter that's sent out. So let me give you an example. If there's a first grade classroom and the exposure, there was 2 students that have come down with COVID-19, and they believe that there's exposure in that classroom, you will receive a personal contact from the Department of Health or the school to start working through that investigation and what's next. So there won't be an occasion where you won't know, right? Because if the Department of Health is involved and there's a confirmed case and they believe that your child or the teacher has been exposed, they're going to contact you because that's part of the contact tracing process. And so once again, we go back to communication. I know you might want communication to you when there's a suspected case, but that is not how the Department of Health works. They have been adamant that it has to be a laboratory confirmed case. So I just want you to be clear on how those things will look. I can't give you a definitive answer as to how we will respond because it will be a case-by-case basis. The last bit of information, the last bit of questions surrounded childcare. So what are the resources for my child for childcare? And so as you know, that this was a big issue in our town hall and in our survey. And so that's why we worked really hard to get our students in school 4 days a week. So what that leaves parents with are before and after school care issues and Friday all day. And so if you're not an employee, and I'll talk about employees' children in a little bit, if you're not an employee, we're going to set up a section on our website specific to community childcare options. So we're going to include in there, we've contacted I believe all of the childcare providers, and if you're listening, then you're a childcare provider and we haven't contacted you, please contact us. But we're going to include information about each of the childcare providers, which ones provide before and after school care, which ones will provide an all-day option. Just this week alone, I had personal meetings with folks at Caterpillar Clubhouse. So they say they have room, they have space, they can provide the before and after school and the Friday all day. The YMCA, their before and after school program will remain intact at the 4 elementary schools that they've been in the past. And that's at, let's make sure I got it, Temperance, Amherst Elementary, Amelon, and Madison Heights. And so they'll remain in those places. They are reporting to me that they will also offer the Friday service all day as well. And so we'll put that up on our website in the next few days as we get more information in, but you can access that website and we'll update that information as new facilities come on board. If you're an employee of Amherst County Public Schools, we know that we've put you in a bind with your children as well. The school system will provide at every school childcare, before and after childcare, and the Friday childcare for our students. And so if you have specific needs, make sure you're getting that information to your principal or you filled out the survey that we sent out. And we're also working on the 3 weeks in August that teachers return to work, but we don't have students yet. So we're going to take care of our staff as well. There's one other announcement. I met with Head Start today, and there have been some changes with Head Start. Head Start, there have been a division of the amount of grant money that the Head Start group has received. There's another group in Lynchburg, Humankind, that received half of the grant money. So what's going to happen with Head Start is they're only going to run their 3-year-old program. And so if you know any 3-year-olds that need care, get in touch with Head Start. If your child was a 3-year-old last year in Head Start, the 4-year-old program will not be available, but the school programs will be available for 4-year-olds. So that's called Smart Start. And if you're a 4-year-old and you want to apply for a Smart Start, please contact the school that you believe you're going to be entering in the fall. And so we'll take care of those 4-year-olds as well. So those are the main questions. That's as much information as was general to us. And like I say, I know there are specific questions that you have, but I'm gonna really encourage you to contact your school. We wanted you to make informed decisions about whether you're going to come back in person, whether you're going to be a car rider, a bus rider, whether or not you're going to be online. So we want to give you that information. We'll keep coming back with information for you as we get it. In the coming weeks, we want you to look for we're calling them explainer videos. We're going to have little animated videos that will kind of show families what a day in the life of a student at school will look like. So we'll kind of walk you through what that will look like before they return. We're going to give you some explainer videos on appropriate mitigation strategies so you can practice those at home. We're working on virtual open house because we're not going to be able to provide our open house that we've done in the past. And so those are things that you can be anticipating in the coming weeks. Also, we're going to take all these questions that were asked and answered tonight. We're going to keep adding to that, and we're going to create what's called a FAQs document, an FAQ, so frequently asked questions. That document's going to be on the website. We encourage you to go look at that because many of your questions are probably going to be answered on there. So if you have a question, go there first, and then if you don't get the answer you're looking for, then you can contact your school. Make sure you continue to reach out to your schools. It's so important. Your administrators and your staff are working extremely hard. We had the administrators in for 2 full days last week going over the plan inch by inch, trying to help them figure out how they're going to implement it in their building. And they are working really hard, and they have the best interests of your child in mind. And so we encourage you to keep reaching out to them. And so that's going to do it for tonight. I hope that this is giving you some information. If you came in halfway or you know someone else that wants to watch it, we're going to post this on Facebook and YouTube tomorrow, so folks can go back and watch or rewatch a section if they need to. But other than that, I want to thank you again for coming and listening. We're going to give you other opportunities to do this, but we wanted to once we put out the plan on Friday, we wanted to come back to you as quickly as possible so you'll know what's going on. We want you to be comfortable, and just want you to know that we're working really hard to provide for a safe and positive return to school for your students. And so with that, I want to wish everybody a great night. I want to hope that everybody stays safe out there, and we'll see you soon. Thank you, and have a good night.